thoughts are trying to get you to not listen to your emotions and your spirit. That's their main role.
We got to like stay right here.
Yeah.
Say that again.
The main purpose of thoughts is to try to get you to not listen to your emotions and spirit.
So how do you manage that?
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
So just so the audience know, these topics that we choose are not random. We take some time to meditate on these and pray about these. And if you are committed to want to take this journey of to heal emotionally and to improve your life, then that's our goal. That's what we're trying to do. And we're going to get more specific. So let's start today talking about stillness.
Okay.
I'm going to ask questions for both of us, and then we're going to talk about them, and we're going to develop this really cool practice today for us and for the audience. So what does it mean to be still?
To me, first thing that comes to my mind is to connect with spirit.
Connect with spirit. I'm not surprised that you would come up with the deepest answer ever for that one.
Because I can't sit still.
Yeah.
Still is hard.
That's exactly what it means. So maybe a more simple definition of what does it mean to be still is it means to detach from thinking, or to the most simplest way is to not think. So I'm going from the constant stream of thinking to quieting the mind.
Becoming the observer. Maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for this practice that we're going to talk about, yes. So all those things, but for those listening, like, what does it mean to be, for now, I think I'm not, to be the observer, but to not think.
That's really hard.
It's super hard. What is difficult about doing that? So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to go on my couch, and I'm going to not think. I'm just going to be still in my body. Why is that difficult for people and for us?
Because for me, my mind is going at all times. So if you're going to tell me not to think, you got to tell me to do something else. Whether that's pay attention to my breath, because if you tell me not to think, I'm going to think.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through someone who's got high anxiety, whose brain is going all the time. How do they actually just stop thinking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and before we dive into like why it's difficult for us, so you're spot on. I think that's so relatable to most people, including myself. So before we dive into more of like why it's difficult, let's talk about let's have a discussion first about like why stillness even matters. Like, so we're talking about not thinking and going into our spirit or into our body. Why is this so important? Let's talk about this for a second.
First thing that comes to my mind is you just recalibrate. You take that pause. So many times I'm split or, and it's like, wait, I need to align.
Mm-hmm.
I need to just pause, take a deep breath, and gather myself. Otherwise, I am on a freight train going a million miles per hour.
Mm-hmm. So in Buddhism, they talk about the greatest form of suffering, or the cause of all suffering in Buddhism is thinking, is thoughts, the constant stream of thoughts, and how that causes all suffering. So, I mean, I don't know if it causes all suffering, but I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I really like how they talk about in Buddhism, because they talk about the mind as thoughts, but then the way that they describe our spirit is they describe our spirit as the one mind, or the pure mind. So that's actually really powerful, because we have two minds. We have the physical brain that thinks and is like chaotic and influenced by darkness and other people and culture and all this crazy stuff. But then we have our pure mind, the one that's not defiled, you could say, the one that's not, it's pure. This is what we talked about last time, how it's made up of light. Okay. So the reason why being still matters is because it's in this space that all inspiration comes from. It's in this space where all truth comes from. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from this space of stillness. So for those listening, really, really kind of think about that in your own life. Anyway, so if we're seeking truth and we're seeking healing, we're seeking progression, all the most meaningful answers that are actually going to change your life are in this space. Okay. So an example that, like a visual that I really like, is a lake. And you're swimming on the surface. And you're swimming everywhere. You're swimming all around the lake. And you're trying to find answers. And you're working really hard. Like you're exerting all this energy. You're swimming all across the lake. And you're not finding any answers. Because all of the real answers that really matter are at the bottom. They're deeper than thoughts. There's a cool parable in the Bible that talks about this. It says that a hungry man dreams. He falls asleep and he dreams. And he dreams that he eats all this food. But then he wakes up and his soul is empty. It's so important. So we're going to talk about how to do that. But other thoughts you have, my friend, on why it's so important to be still.
Oh, there's so many things. I keep, as you're talking, I'm just remembering you at the retreat, and you'd go to talk and then you'd pause in front of everybody, like, just a minute, I'm going too fast. And I would see you sit there, you close your eyes, get still for a second, and it gave the room a chance to do that themselves. So when someone takes stillness, it gives the other person permission to pause and go, oh, wait, this is what we're doing? And it creates this really beautiful collective, like, pause. So I really loved watching you do that in front of a group, because it then reminded me, oh yeah, okay, just a second. Let's get real for a second. Okay. Take a breath. And I feel like if I'm still, I can actually listen. So I'm not listening. I'm reacting. I'm talking. But if I'm still, I actually can have a space to actually stop and hear what you are saying. And the practice of watching someone get still, it almost has a reverence and like there's something serious here, and that like this is important. So really pay attention.
Sure.
To me, it's makes it a little bit more special when someone takes the time to really slow down.
Well, it's the pure space. It's
right.
The sacred space.
It changes the energy like that.
It's so cool.
In 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. And especially with what we're going to talk about today, we need a lot of stillness in dealing with situations like that.
Yeah, thanks for saying all that. Kimberly hits on something that's so the principle that we're basically talking about is as a therapist, I see this all the time with my clients. I have clients that come in and they're just like rattling, and it's fine. They're venting, but everything they're talking about is just thoughts that they've had throughout the week, just intellectual things. Yeah. And answers don't come from intellectualizing. We can get really surface answers, but like we said, all of the most important answers that you have about how do I really change? How do I improve my relationship? How do I have more confidence? How do I have my self-worth? We promise you it comes from this space of stillness. And so we're going to help you. We're going to start talking about how to tap into that on your own so that you can find the answers that you need.
Right.
So let's do that.
Yeah. And it becomes a practice. Like when you realize creating this stillness, even if it's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breath, right? And you really take the time throughout your day when you recognize yourself, at least for me, going, if I can just stop and just ground just for 2 seconds, it completely changes my day. Like for real, not just like saying this, like for real.
Yeah. It's grounding. It's very grounding. And recenters you and all that stuff.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about relationships.
Yeah, but let's.
You still want to talk about stillness?
Yeah, we want to pin down this practice of stillness, so how people can actually do this, and then this is going to naturally lead into being still in relationships and the relationship stuff, which is just as important. But okay, so step one is you have to, this entire practice that me and Kimberly are gonna talk about is 30 minutes. So we're talking about a 30-minute commitment every day, which is kind of a big commitment for some people, but you'll start to see how important and like critical it is. Like you're going to want to protect this 30 minutes, hopefully after we talk about this. Okay. So the first step is kind of what Kimberly was saying. So the first step is you need to find somewhere, you need to set aside the time, and you need to find somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed. And for 2 minutes, you are intentionally calming yourself down, and you're trying to, probably the best way to do it is just to like close your eyes and to pay attention to your breath. Anything but think is what you want to do in this. It can literally just be 2 minutes. You're just kind of calming, you're breathing, you're getting away from this great addiction of thinking, which is, by the way, the greatest addiction that exists. Anyways. Okay. So you're doing that for 2 minutes. Now, what's most likely going to happen for you or for most people is they are not comfortable in doing that. Like you were saying, like it's kind of uncomfortable for people. So a good way to visualize that, it's like walking into a room that the label of the room says stillness. You walk into the room of stillness, and as soon as you go in there, it smells in there. And there's like dirty laundry in there, and you're like, ew, like I don't want to be in here. It's like kind of gross. Okay. So that experience is very normal. The smell or the dirty laundry is symbolic of negative emotions. So that's good. That stillness, that's what we want stillness to lead to. We don't want it to necessarily lead to that every time, but if it leads to that for a while, that's fine. So the second part of this practice, the first part of the practice is being still. The second part is doing some kind of an emotional check-in, cleaning out the dirty laundry. Let's talk about that for a second. We talked a bit about this on podcast number 1, on the first one. We're going to be doing a deep dive into all these emotions after this podcast, anxiety, shame, so that you can start knowing exactly how to deal with some of the stuff that's coming up for you. But for now, just get into a habit of when you're still, just get into a habit of like doing an emotional check-in, which is step 1. What am I feeling? Or what negative emotion has been coming up for me for the last 24 hours, last day? Like, okay, so you're identifying. Step 2, we talked about this last time. You'll feel the emotion if you need to, which is if it's sadness, hurt, or guilt, then you need to. The other ones you need to recognize. So step 2, feel it if you need to. We'll talk more about that. Step 3 is to then look at the emotional guide that we're going to post on the show notes. And then it's like, what is this emotion trying to tell me that I need right now? So this is a big thing we talked about last time. You need to get into a habit of actually addressing your emotions rather than just managing them. Both are important. Sometimes in the moment we have to manage them, but then we always need to go back and actually get the message and like address them. Again, we're going to be talking more about that. But a good starting point for this emotional practice for now, after you do the stillness, is just try to identify what you're feeling. Maybe that's all I want to say for now. Just get into a habit of just recognizing what it is, and maybe even talking to yourself and saying, hey, like, I'm not quite sure how to deal with this yet or to listen to you yet, but I'm going to learn.
Right? They're just taking the temperature.
Yes.
Just check
please.
In. And it could be positive. They could be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So good or bad. Then what's step 5?
So that's it.
That's it. And then they sit and don't talk.
So there's just 3 steps for the emotional check-in.
Oh.
So identify, feel if you need to, and then reflect. What is this emotion telling me? But for now, we're doing a deep dive into that. For now, just identify your emotions. That'll be a great start for now.
And then sit and not think for 28 more minutes.
No. So let's talk about the third phase of this. So we forgot the equation, Kimberly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the equation that if you're not driving, if you're just like in a place where you can write this down, this equation I think is pretty powerful. So the equation that we're talking about of this practice, the spiritual practice that we're talking about, is stillness plus seeking equals light and truth. Stillness plus seeking equals light and truth. Just one thought on this equation before we go back to the practice is this is a true merger of East Buddhism is what I'm a big fan of, East, but Eastern philosophy, and West Christianity, which I'm a big fan of as well. So how do these things merge in this equation? Well, the East is all about, in Buddhism, they talk a lot about how if you are just still, if all you do in your life is practice being still and present, then all of the answers you need in your life will be revealed to you. You will achieve enlightenment if you're just still and that's all you do. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that's valid. I think what's powerful though is yes, that, but also seeking something when you're in that space.
Right.
Okay, so, and this is what Christianity represents. Christianity is a lot more direct. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you, right? So we're merging these beautiful teachings into one where stillness is so valuable, but we want you to seek something in that space too, to really find the truth, find the light that you need in your life. And so any other thoughts, my friend, on what we're chatting about?
No, I'm just trying to envision this practice so that someone who's never done this before, they have any questions or concerns, so you check in.
I've never done this before either. I'm making all this stuff
You're
up on the
just
spot.
totally making it up.
We are making all this stuff up. Like, yeah. No,
I like that part of like actually have like a prayer in your heart or something that you're seeking for. Have an intention. However you want to.
Intentions are important.
Right. So
And
you
I
actually,
think-
for that practice, it's directed towards something.
Yes. So, okay. So stillness for a couple minutes. You can go longer if you want, and then do a little bit of an emotional check-in. And then the third part is seeking. And so this is going to involve, maybe a more direct approach, which is like prayer, meditation, having an intention, just like you said. So prayer and meditation / study. I cannot emphasize the study part enough. The TikTok craze is replacing study for
Agreed.
people. It's like quick. It's not good. It's not good. I don't have a problem with TikTok. I'm going to be posting
I do.
videos. I'm going to be posting all my videos on there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to be posting stuff on there. But it's like the reason why it's so important is because it puts you in the role of a student.
Right.
And so where can you go to study? Let me grab my phone here. It's on the floor. We'll post this on the show notes, but we'll post on the show notes, but let me just mention 5 references just real quick. So you can buy all these cheap for used on Amazon. But these are just 5 references. So get a couple of these books and start, don't just read them, try to sit with them. You're already still ideally, and you can like really kind of sink your teeth into these, and this can fill up the rest of your time on the spiritual practice. So I'm getting carried away. Let me pull up these 5 real quick. So these are okay. So here's probably 5 of my study recommendations. Christianity, New Testament, the Bible basically is one. Old Testament has some amazing nuggets in it too. The Tao Te Ching, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and then the Zen teachings of Huang Po. I think I'm pronouncing that right. These provide a beautiful combination of like kind of what this merging of East and West. It's like, those are great. And we'll post that so you can see
It's a
those
good
on
list.
there. The last thing I want to say about this whole entire thing is going back to the visual of the lake. Okay, so the most surface part of who you are or we are as a human is thoughts. So overrated, thoughts. Telling you right now, so overrated. So thoughts are the most surface. We dive a little bit under the lake, and the next depth that we find is emotions and breath. So this is why after you're still, you do the emotional check-in. This is the natural, like, dirty laundry in the room, clearing that out. By the way, as you get into a habit of doing this, you'll actually love being still. It'll be like a peaceful place for you. And that's honestly when your life changes in a lot of ways.
That is a true statement.
Cool.
100%.
Because I'm making most of this up, so I need your validation.
No, I'm telling you right now, changes your life.
I've seen that too. So, and then you've said this right at the beginning, and then the most deeper layer is spirit. And so, okay, what's that? That is this, remember we talked about this last time, your spirit is made up of light and truth.
Yeah.
And so that's why the study and the prayer and the meditation is so important, because you're trying to put truth in. Just like that parable, the hungry man has a dream and he eats and he awakes and his soul is empty. I just love that parable.
So deep.
And Christ said this. Christ said, no man can live by bread alone. So there's two parts of you. There's your physical body. Your physical body can live by bread alone. Your spirit, it can't. And this is what's happening in the world. This is why this is a huge draw to psychedelics. This is the surge of psychedelics, is people feeling, this isn't the only reason, but people feeling spiritually lost and having no purpose. And where do I find it? And there's a lot of, it's so important to be feeding yourself with truth and light. And so that's important. So if you make this 30-minute, if you protect this space, and it sounds easy, what we're talking about may sound easy, actually doing it, like you said last time, integrating this and actually doing it can be difficult. Just give it a shot. Make it a priority. What I do is I have 2 young girls. They're 5 and 2. They're super fun. They're crazy though. They're like smashing pillows in my face. Like, I can't do this at home. So what do? I make it a commitment to whatever time I start work, I'm going 30 minutes early.
Right.
And I'm sitting in my office and I'm being still. And I'm grateful for that, because when I have emotions there, I'm addressing those. But as this is a practice, guys, and so as you practice this, you'll eventually, that stillness room will not be full of dirty laundry, and then you'll get even more from that at that point. So I'm talking too much. Any other thoughts, Miss Kimberly, on this practice?
I love all of it. I completely agree with the importance of it. And when I first got into this, it was just for anyone else who might have, it feels like a giant jump, right? To me, being still sometimes doesn't mean just sitting totally still. Still to me is plopping myself out of my normal routine. So my stillness was a walking meditation for a while, without my phone, without my AirPods. It was just because it was too hard for me to sit. I had too much going through my body. Mm-hmm. So I needed to just move that energy, but I was still being still.
Yes.
So you don't have to just sit. And if you're uncomfortable, like I can't, even if it's like moving and yet you just still are, even if it's music, like it doesn't have to, everyone can create their own practice, and you'll crave, you're just a professional, right? You're a master, so you can Zen sit.
No,
okay.
No.
But I think there's an evolution of stillness.
Yes. And the same was true for me. So this is why we have Kimberly on the podcast. She's Mrs. Relatable. Like so yeah, it doesn't have to be have it, anything that you're doing, anything that you can do other than drugs that is going to stop you that is going to take your attention away from thinking.
Right.
And honestly, this is why extreme sports are so attractive to some people, is because it forces you, like free climbing, it forces you to not think, because as soon as you think, you're dead. It forces you to be very present and still. So what Kimberly's saying is so valuable. And we also have another human being, our tech guy in this room. His name is Dane.
What's up?
He's amazing.
Dane has a lot of depth to him too. Dane, we're going to come to you in a second. If anything pressing that is coming up for you about what we're talking about.
Give me a little more than a second, if you don't mind.
Yep. We'll come back. We'll check in.
We're going to ask a really deep question. Dane, answer this.
So I think that's good for the stillness spiritual practice. So,
and innately, you're going to know. You're going to know what that practice looks like for you. And honor it. And honor it. For me, certain days it's out laying in the grass. I need to be everything shut off, laying in the grass. Other days it's with a journal and I'm free writing. Other days I'm walking. But if you can just check in, have that check in, ask what you need, and just trust whatever that is. It could be a bath. It could be anything. Just do
that's so
what
beautiful.
Your heart knows it needs. You're the best person to take care of yourself. Listen.
So I think our message is like, make sure you take the time though, like be intentional with this 30 minutes. And if the starting point of it is like, you just take a bath and you're just, then cool. Like, but take the 30 minutes, protect that space, and it'll evolve into,
you will crave that time.
Exactly.
You really will.
It'll be a necessity.
It turns from torture chamber to like heaven sent. At least it did for me.
Last thought before we transition into relationships is that, the main message is like, people are overdeveloped intellectually and underdeveloped emotionally and spiritually. Okay. So we're turning away from the intellect, turning into emotion and spirit. And probably a good segue to this is like, just as important as it is to be still alone, it's just as important to be still in our relationships. And so we can talk more about what that actually means.
Yeah, this relationship thing's going to be tricky.
But I'm going to let you lead this, my friend.
No, because
me and Kimberly thought of some good questions that we wanted to talk about together. And so we're going to do that about relationships now. So switching to anything else you wanted to say about stillness stuff?
No, I just think it's key. Was I good at being still in my relationships? Absolutely not. 0%. If I could go back in time, yes, we would. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to sit now and transition and talk about relationships. I would hope that any of my past just push pause, turn it off now. Anyone that knows me, my children, just you have permission. Mommy says to turn this off. Because I want to be able to speak freely and in no way speak from a place of expertise, right? It's, let me tell you how I wish I would have done it different. And honor the parts of me that did it the best way I knew how, and it just didn't work out. So stillness, relationships, we talk about that brings in light, that brings in the spirit, it changes the fundamental energy between two people. Just pausing. Before we start this practice, we have a grounding practice. We try to get still. We try to just really settle into the space and ground. And when you're in a relationship, so much of us are, at least in my experience, we're just reacting off of each other. So recalibrate in a relationship is essential.
That's so good. So I want a specific thought on what does it mean to be still in relationships. Simply put, when the other person is speaking, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say next.
Right.
I'm not pre-planning my response. That's a big part of what it means to be still in our marriage or in our relationships, because the number one gap, how people feel in their relationships, is they don't feel seen and they don't feel understood. Well, why? Because the other person is sitting over there thinking about what they're going to say. They're not, and it's hard, especially when you're in conflict, we'll talk more about this, but when you're in conflict, both you and your partner have negative emotions coming up at the same time. So to be able to this is how having your individual still practice will really help with your relationships, because you can be I love what you said. You can be an observer. When you're in conflict with your partner, you can be an observer and you can do your best to I'm just going to listen to my partner and understand them first before I make my own point.
Yeah. Do you do that really well in your marriage, Corey?
No, I do not.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress for sure. 'Cause it's hard. It's the ultimate. This is why anyone that's single, this is why relationships are a partnership with another person is an essential, step of progression, because it's a whole nother level of awareness and stillness and respect and love and all that stuff. So it's like you think you got it mastered down, but you're single. Wait till you are in a marriage. I should
Triggers.
say it's not that bad.
Way to set it up, Corey.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's just as equally fulfilling as it is difficult. But anyways. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that. So that's part of my thoughts on what it means to be still in a relationship.
Yeah. And something that helped me, let's be honest, it never really took in my marriage. I am divorced.
No.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that. I'm just kidding. Just find out right now.
Yeah. So that was fun. But I remember Coach telling us once, like, to create this stillness, because, I was highly reactive. He's highly defensive, right? And you're just a little tip that, I think could help is, and I'm sure because you're the therapist, but as you're saying this is just coming into my mind, is when one person is sharing, that's it. The other person doesn't get to share till the next day. You get to just be still. You get to witness.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's not even a back and forth, because then you're waiting if I know, Corey, if we're in a fight and I know I'm not allowed to give my side of the story till tomorrow, I'm probably going to listen better. Just a little thought.
That would be amazing if there was if that could work.
Right?
Tomorrow, for most people, waiting until tomorrow, that's
okay, how about an hour?
I don't
know. How about
know.
1 hour, Corey? I'm going to tell you all the ways you ticked me off.
I think you're more advanced than most people at doing that. You're more advanced at doing that than most people, I think, for sure. But ideally, it's here's what I think. Here's why I think it's hard for people. So this is the deception of Satan or the mind. If I'm in a conflict with my wife, and this happens, not the conflict, but this happens for me regularly, where I have this thought come up, and I think it does for most people that I talk to on the therapy couch, is why is it so hard for you or us to just listen and understand your partner? I know you're pissed off, and I know you have a point you want to make, but why is it so hard for you to put that on the shelf and listen and understand your partner? And it's a fear thing for most of us. It's like a fear or a deception of if you don't share that right now, you're going to forget about it.
Right.
And it's a really important point to make. So we have a deception of darkness coming into our thoughts that is convincing you that you have to share this right now,
or you will die.
Yes. Seriously,
yes,
that's the feeling.
Know.
That's the feeling.
I know.
And then the other deception is you will forget about it if you don't share it.
Which you're going to ruminate about it for 3 more days.
Trust me, you will not forget about this dumb thought that's probably not that important.
Have you ever taken notes in the middle? I won't talk.
Well, then you're not really. Then you're not fully listening.
No, you're not.
So this takes some personal experience. So the goal is obviously a kind of almost like a faith thing or a spiritual trust of I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust that if I listen and understand my partner first, that there's no thought or no idea that's going to come up for me in the moment that is more important than me listening and understanding first. And then whatever comes up for me after they feel fully listened to and understood. And look, that might take 20 minutes of them railing on you or whatever, but you're just sitting there still and you're not taking it. Your ego isn't getting in the way. You're listening, you're understanding. And then it's your turn, and your partner understands this. You've talked about this ideally already. Hey, we need to listen and understand first. You have the stage, and then I'm in the audience. You have the stage though, and then I can have the stage right after. But my point is trusting that this thought that seems so important to bring up, that Satan is deceiving you about. If it's really that important, guess what? I promise you it's going to emerge and it's going to come up from the place of stillness after your partner feels understood. And guess what? Sometimes nothing comes up and you're not supposed to say anything. You just trust. This takes some practice, trusting this intuition or trusting the spirit, trusting your own spirit. This takes practice. It all starts with your own spiritual practice of trying to be still, doing the emotional check-in, studying, praying. That's the key. So,
Right. And most of the time, I would say your partner, your sweetheart, just wants to be witnessed. And sometimes if you can just, I had to tell myself over and over, oh, Kimberly, don't fix this. They just want to be witnessed.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And you just witness, oh, I'm detaching. I'm the observer now. I'm not the wife. I'm not the person that totally ticked you off or did A, B, C. I'm just now witnessing you.
Be like a tree. Be like a tree. Seriously, though.
No, for real.
That's the power. Like, trees are witnesses.
You
We'll
were a
talk
tree.
more about that another
Corey
time.
was a tree,
I'm
you guys.
obsessed.
Just to let you know. Corey for sure was a tree.
Oh my gosh, you just divulged my deepest secret that I believed I was a tree in my past life.
I see it.
Okay,
Hey.
so this is all great. So yeah, let's dive into some of these questions.
So relationships are hard. Please, right? Okay, but this is hard. So, okay, we're talking about stillness, but you as a therapist, what would you say, what emotions are the most common in relationships and like how to listen to them? Like we were talking about emotions last week and now we're talking about creating stillness, but like what are the main emotions that come up and kind of derail relationships? Is that what you were getting at with this?
Yes, let's talk about that one, and then let's have this lead into. I loved the other question that we thought of too. Let's have this lead into the question of like, how do I know if I'm in a healthy relationship?
Yeah, I
or not?
skipped over that one.
No. I noticed you were reading it with your lips.
I was reading,
but you were saying something different with your
remember
mouth.
Remember that whole thing? You're gonna talk, and I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to talk about that one.
No,
Guys, I just got out of a really unhealthy relationship. Hence the skipping over.
I could sense some avoidance. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh
No, that'll be. We love to hear your openness about that. But let's talk about what the question you asked first.
Yeah.
Okay, so
what emotions are like game changers to listen to? Which ones get in the way? Like. They're so like you can have all these lovely intentions. I'm going to be still. I'm going to be observant. The second those emotions light up, you are triggered and it's on. So
let me answer this from a place of stillness and not my
yeah.
intellectual mind.
Let's get still.
So to rephrase the question, what are the most important emotions to listen to in your relationship? It's the one that is causing the most problems. Which emotion causes the most problems in a relationship? It is the emotion of feeling offended. Let's talk about the relationship emotion. So offended is the one that consistently causes the most problems. It actually, if it goes unchecked, will lead to a divorce. It's a big deal. Yeah. Yours were, from what I know, yours were not just that. They're anyways. Okay. So the thing I want to say about offended is that there's a huge difference between feeling offended and feeling hurt. 99% of the time, people think they're feeling hurt in their relationship. They're actually feeling offended. Okay, so what's the difference and why does it even matter? The difference is hurt is pretty severe. It's like deep. We're talking about, if you want to know if you're feeling hurt, like I said, it's very rare for most people.
Is it?
For you, you've been through some hurtful relationships for sure. But for most people, actually being hurt in a somewhat healthy relationship is very rare. So hurt is specific to betrayal, lying, cheating, and abuse. If you can be honest and ask yourself, are those things happening in my relationship? Then you are getting hurt. And if you're feeling hurt, your spirit is trying to tell you, hey, what's happening is not good for you and something needs to change. That is the clear message of hurt. Okay, so that's really important. So now we'll talk more in depth about that. What needs to change? Well, it's recommended to bring it up with your partner to see if they're willing to make a change. And if they're not, then you need to make a change.
Right.
The message of hurt is really clear and it's so important to listen to. We'll talk more about that. So hurt is more severe. The offended covers most things that happen in people with relationships, where like disrespect, if somebody's rude, says a rude comment, unfairness, inconsiderate. You know, me and my wife love each other, but we do some of these things on a regular basis. We're being offensive, right? Okay, so why does it even matter that we're talking about this and breaking this down? Well, the reason why it's so important is because hurt is mostly on somebody else or fully on someone else, but offended is like 95% our responsibility. Okay, so the principle of this, the importance of this, we'll talk more about this, but the importance of this is if I think I'm feeling hurt, but I'm actually feeling offended, then I'm blaming my partner for that. And I'm not taking responsibility for my part in the feeling offended. Okay, so example.
It's good stuff. Whew.
Let's give a small example so this actually is making sense. So, okay, so let's say you have a partner that says something judgmental about you or how you look or rude, right? It's normal in that moment to feel offended. Now, the main message of offended is that I'm lacking understanding. I'm the one. So we'll talk more about that so it makes sense. Like I said, 95% of the feeling of offended. Let me just share a personal example, actually, because I think this will make more sense. So I love my sister. She's amazing. She was over at dinner a while ago, and she was saying a couple rude comments about me. And after the first one or two, I'm like, whatever, it's not a big deal, whatever. After like the fourth or fifth, though, like I'm starting to get like a little heated internally. I'm like, I almost told her to leave. I'm glad I didn't say anything. The next day, I'm working out. I'm doing my routine. And I'm just like so pissed. I can't even like work out. I'm so upset. And so I'm trying to do this practice. So we'll talk more about anger, but I was anger. Okay, what's underneath that? I realized I was feeling offended. So I asked, and I know what that means. That means I'm the one that's lacking in understanding. I'm not seeing the full picture. Okay. So I know this. So I'm trying to do this practice. So I ask myself, and this is a really important question when we feel offended, what do I need to understand so that I don't have to feel this way anymore? I ask myself that question. I realize that my sister has had a really rough time with men. She dated a few men. Her and my dad growing up as the root was not, I don't think they had the ideal emotional connection that a girl needs with her father. And she then dates these other men, one of them whom tried to kill her. And I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I had that experience, I'd feel the same way about men too. Like she kind of at that moment, she kind of had a negative view of men. And I, being a man, anyways, long story short, I realized that this had nothing to do with me, what she was saying. So I don't need to take it personal. So like, it's okay. And guess what? She still at times will say rude things to me, but guess what happens? I don't have that offended come up at all.
Because you've sought
Because I found the understanding that I need. Now, if this was my wife consistently doing this, I would address this with her. I would find the understanding first, and then I would bring it up with her. So we're not talking about like, you can't bring this up. Like it's still, if it's happening consistently, it's still important to bring up. but you need to take responsibility for, and people hate this. It's a very humbling emotion. Wait, this person's being rude to me and I need to find understanding? This a-hole, they need to be the one that, but it's like, Christ talked about this. Jesus talked about it. Take the mote. I might be botching this, but take the mote out of your own eye, or take the beam out of your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly to take the beam that is in your brother's eye. This is part of what he meant. Understand, take responsibility for your own emotion first, and find the understanding, and then you'll be able to see clearly to communicate and to see what's in your partner's eye. What's anyways.
Right. And a lot of the time, it's really not about you.
Exactly.
As a therapist,
exactly.
how much would you say?
100%.
Right?
100%.
It does not make it right for you to be taking it. That's not what you're saying. You're saying, figure it out. If it needs to be addressed, then address it. But maybe go back, get some stillness, seek the understanding, and then, find out where this is coming from. Because that's not okay.
The mind, the brain, the mind, the deception of the mind will say, I lost my train of thought, so I'm not supposed to share it. Yeah, not supposed to share it. But it'll convince you that it is about you,
right.
I think, and it'll convince you that, I can't remember what else I was going to say. So we'll just, I love what you said. So true.
Just saying.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
What about the other 5%?
This is Dane. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say, Dane. I knew we had you here for a reason.
Wavelength.
Just that little reason.
So 95% of it is on us to find the understanding. The other 5%, this is the part that if it's happening consistently, we need to you are being inconsiderate in this way. I just wanted to bring it up, and it's all good. I already found the understanding first, but I just you need to bring that up with your partner if it's something that's.
Do you have an example? I'm curious as to what that. Not that I care so much about the 5%, because I'm wanting to ignore responsibility.
Never mind. We don't want you on this podcast anymore. Your question is what's an example of addressing someone else? It's actually a really good question.
I don't know that we have to. We maybe circle back to that. But
no, I think we should answer it now. So making sure this is coming from a place of stillness and not intellect is this. We were going to come to this anyways, Dane. So I think this is good. There's a term that I really like, that when we communicate with our partner, the goal is to do that out of pure knowledge. Okay, what does that even mean? It means
objectivity.
Yep. It means objective truth, meaning I'm not sharing, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm not sharing my opinion about why you're doing this. I'm not sharing necessarily a lot of my opinions about or feelings necessarily about it. I've already dealt with the offense. I've already kind of found the understanding. I'm just letting you know that you are being rude. That's just an maybe you wouldn't say it like that.
Yeah, but what if they go to you? I'm not rude.
Yeah. So, well, then we've got a little bit of a problem. But
then you're in a pickle.
Then you need to end this relationship. No, just
get divorced.
No, but communicating out of pure knowledge, when you said this, it was inconsiderate, and I just wanted to I'm hoping that we can that's something that we can work on, or that you can I understand why you said it. It was whatever. The way that I think the main point is when we deal with our offended first, we are not coming at them heated. We are coming at them from a place of stillness and from a place of understanding. And the way that people respond to that is usually in likeness. They are usually more calm. and they usually respond better. That's not a guarantee that will, because we can't control that. But if you're in a healthy relationship, if you are bringing something up that's important to you, they may not respond well the first time, but if you continue to bring it up a second, they will. If you're in a healthy relationship, they will to some degree acknowledge it and want to work on it because they love and care about you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this last thing and then I'll just be your tech guy, I promise. But your hurt is like, or sorry, like it's such a two-way street, right? In every scenario, it's like, that's, I feel like why divorce would happen is it's just one person can be perfect in this stillness, but if the other isn't reciprocating that, yeah, I could imagine you're running into a wall.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens, and so you really want to look at like, we can be pretty happy and fulfilled in a relationship if we're not getting hurt consistently. The hurt is really the deal breaker. If someone's continually hurting us, abuse, lying, cheating, betrayal, that we have to listen to that message that comes from spirit, which is, like we said, what's happening is not good for you, period.
Do you feel like that's
period?
Where, yeah. Do you
and
feel
something needs to change.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's where therapy comes into play, is like an objective third party to say you're either hurt or offended?
Ideally, but most therapists aren't good at giving advice about relationships.
So Corey,
because
what
their
is
own relationships are a mess, including my own. No, I'm just kidding.
Whatever. So what would you say is the best way to tell if you're in an unhealthy relationship? Is how you deal with conflict?
I think we kind of answered that.
Really?
Yeah, the hurt.
So if they are not taking your hurt and holding it with their heart, you got a problem.
Yep. This happened to a good friend of mine. This is the most extreme example, but it highlights it perfectly. So he found out that his wife was cheating on him with his best friend. So he's super cool about it, actually. And he approaches his wife and he says, hey, like this is a good example of communicating with pure knowledge. Hey, I'm really hurt by this. I found out that you're cheating with my best friend, and I'm hoping that we can figure something out.
What?
Her response, shoot, man, it's not going to stop. So deal with it.
Ugh.
And he didn't listen to his hurt quickly and as quickly as we would have liked him to, but eventually he had to get a divorce. If he was listening to his hurt, which means something needs to change, either my partner needs to change or I need to make the change. There's people try to negotiate with hurt all the time. Like, well, and it's like, no, that message is very direct and very important. There's a direct correlation. People that do not listen to their hurt, people that listen to hurt and act on it, you typically have pretty high self-esteem and self-worth. People that do not listen to hurt, their self-worth slowly starts to go down the drain.
Right.
I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but at least she was honest.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it didn't help him because he was not responding properly to his
right.
Yeah, to the hurt.
Right.
And I love this, like, you're making it so clear. If you don't listen to your hurt, it then, for at least in my life, it stopped becoming more about how they were hurting me. It became now, how am I hurting myself? Because I am self-betraying
100%
to such a level of taking this hurt time and time again. And like you said, the low self-worth, the low self-esteem. And you think, you logically know I deserve better. This is not okay. But you're not willing to act on that hurt. And you're constantly saying this is hurting me. And the hurt is just, I never thought of it just that simple. That's how you tell if you're in a healthy relationship. How do they handle your hurt?
It's that simple on paper. But let's look at the other side of, think about my friend, and this, I see this a lot. He's been married to this girl for 10 years. They have kids together. Their whole life is together. Like, just imagine how hard it is. Like, I know I'm getting hurt severely, but she's not willing to change that. And so that means I need to basically get a divorce. Like, oh, that is so difficult to validate the other side. The message is still the same. What I wish happens for most people is because usually as a therapist, I see people a year removed from this where they come in a year later and their wife is still cheating on them and they haven't gotten a divorce yet. And it's been a year of this happening, right? So unfortunately, why does not listening to hurt affect our self-worth so much? It goes right along with that saying, we accept the love that we feel like we deserve. So if we're accepting being hurt, this starts to affect how we feel about ourselves. This is a strong message. Like, you actually deserve this. Even though we logically know we don't, we start feeling like we do. Right. And that's why it damages people so much, so forth. So a year later, someone comes on the therapy couch and they're telling me their story. I'm like, dang it, homie. It's okay. I get it. But I wish you would have been able to have the strength or understanding to act on this a week or 2 weeks or a month later to save yourself all this suffering. But it's fine. We'll figure it out.
Okay. So your friend in this world, let's just pretend he leaves his wife. He's now moving on. What are the number one things as a therapist you can tell him, like, okay, now you're dating. Let's look for these qualities in a future partner so that we don't get into this problem again. What do you feel like is your go-to that you'd share with people?
Okay, I think you should actually answer this question.
No way.
Because you're asking me all these questions and I'm talking a lot.
I love it. You're the therapist.
Well, you're the expert.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay.
You're
street smart.
You got the street smarts.
I've been in the war zone.
Let's answer this question together. I want to answer this question with you. So let's maybe see if we can narrow it down to like have a powerful answer together. The question is, what is the most important quality or attribute that I can look for in a partner to have the best chance for a healthy, loving, awesome relationship? What is the number one thing I should be looking for to find a healthy relationship? I think you know, my friend.
I obviously don't.
You're
going to get me sad. Don't get me sad.
The podcast has officially started.
I know, right? I think it's how someone holds your heart. I really do. I think it's so telling when you hurt another and they can either dissociate from it, block it, whatever. And so yeah, I think it's somebody that, because we're talking about our spirit, our heart, all that's one, right? That's so much more deeper than this body.
The heart is the spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody can hurt your spirit, whew. So to me, it would be somebody that can, like you said, everyone wants to be seen, heard, all of that. So someone can see you, see your spirit, see your heart, and hold it lovingly. I would think that would help not repeat those patterns of before. Right? What do you think?
That is pure wisdom. So Kimber, the number one most important quality you can look for is somebody that's going to hold your heart. Let's break that. Let's talk about exactly what that looks like. Let's get a clear. So yes, that is if there's a right answer, I believe that's it. But what is that? Let's talk about what that actually means. So, okay, so there's this famous marriage therapist. He's really great. I've met him in person. His name's John Gottman. What made him famous is he would observe a couple for 5 minutes.
He could tell.
And he would predict with a 95% accuracy rate if this relationship was going to work out or not, or if it was healthy or not.
Would you want to know or not?
I remember listening to that book on tape
you
and being
want
like,
him to tell
I'm
you?
about like 6 years overdue. Like we're 5 minutes too
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
Carry on.
So with a 95% accuracy rate, if this is going to work out or not. He talks about a lot of stuff in his books, but the main thing that it boils down to is, does your partner take responsibility for their own crap? Do they own their part? When, like you said, when they are hurting you and you say, hey man, you kissed another girl or you lied to me about this, like, this is hurtful. And I'm hoping that we can figure something out. Are they blaming you? So this is what he talks about in his books. Are they criticizing you? Are they stonewalling you? He calls them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Are they getting defensive? These are all signs of somebody not holding your heart, or these are all signs of someone not taking responsibility. And so these are, if this happens consistently where someone's hurting you and they're not owning it, this is the end of days of the relationship. This is the apocalypse. This spells the end of days, Okay. So that is the number one most important thing to look for in a partner by far is, can this person take feedback, and how good are they at taking responsibility and holding your heart and taking responsibility for their part?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk more about what that looks like in dating, because ideally you want to find out if somebody is a healthy match for you before you are in it deep and like months deep, and you've already invested so much, right? So we should definitely talk more about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now?
Well, yeah. One of the things we want to talk about, I mean, we're talking about hurt and we're talking about dating and we're talking about divorce. Like, what is one of the things you help people deal with emotions when they deal with someone that they see moved on and now they're with somebody else?
So how do I deal with, so let's take my friend, for example.
Yeah.
His wife cheats on him with his best friend, and then they get married.
Right.
And they get married, let's say 2 months after. How do you deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
That is a serious, real question. Let's talk about this together. What's the ideal way? What's a perspective to be able to deal with that? What's the truth, maybe? Because this can cause us to feel like I wasn't good enough. It was my fault, perhaps.
Right.
Or like I think it brings up a lot of it can bring up a lot of insecurities.
Oh, for sure. Even if you're putting on the strong face, like, haha, it's your problem now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deep down. Yeah, Dane.
What's the emotion that you're typically dealing with at
Humiliation.
that point? It's humiliation, but could there be an element of like insecurity or jealousy or
Yeah,
for sure. All of it.
Yeah.
Stalking online.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the best way to handle that? Probably try to get out of your mind, out of all those thoughts.
Stillness.
Yeah, if we go back to stillness. Yeah, that takes miracles, because that stuff cuts so deep, and then it continues to cut, and then you watch it right in front of your face, and it's just a train wreck.
So this has happened for you.
Yeah.
And this has happened for me many, many times when I was dating, because I got married when I was 32, and I dated a lot in my 20s, and this was like a pattern. Mm. I'll share one thing.
They would get married right after.
What's that?
They would get married after dating
I was
you.
like what was it, the good luck Chuck? Is that what the preparer of?
Oh, that's a nice nickname.
I was so happy to play that role.
Yeah.
So grateful. So stoked.
Hey, just so you know, before we go on the state, I am the preparer.
Yeah.
So I lost my train of thought.
How did you deal with it when she
Yeah.
broke up with you and then got married to the next person?
Okay, so if you're dating someone and you break up and then they find themselves in a relationship really quick and you're left like feeling all the feels of that. I believe the truth in most cases is let's say the reason you broke up with them is because hopefully it was for a good reason. Let's just assume it was for a really good and valid reason. Because emotionally, like maybe for example, emotionally, like there wasn't a connection, or like you wanted kids and they didn't, or you were willing to take responsibility for anything that you needed to, but they just didn't have the capacity to do that or weren't willing to do that. That's hopefully that's the main reason. Okay, so if that happens and they then find themselves with someone else that's better looking than you or has more money than you or whatever the situation is, prettier
Younger than you,
Yep. Mm-hmm. How do you still
blonder than you? Just kidding.
How do you feel? Yeah. How do you feel okay about that? The truth is most people, most humans, and I'll say this for men, most men, a lot of men aren't actually they don't really care that much about an emotional connection with women. Not most men, but let's just say there is men out there that don't care about having an emotional connection.
Right.
And let's say the reason you broke up with her was because there wasn't an emotional connection. They weren't holding your heart. This person found someone that doesn't really care about that. And now they're married to them. And so it's hard for us, like, this is the error or deception of the mind. What they talk about in Buddhism causes suffering is because you're assuming that this person that they're with or married has the same requirements as you.
Right. They're actually just probably easier than
you.
you.
And they don't. And you know what? They might be really happy. They might be on the same page where they both just want to have sex and they both just want to have fun and they don't want to have depth in their relationship. This is true. Most people don't care that much about having depth in their relationship.
How is that possible?
I wouldn't say most people. There's a lot. I'll just say a lot of people
really?
don't. I promise
As a therapist, you see this.
100%.
They don't care. They don't care about depth.
It's not. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it might be most people, to be honest, especially. I think that percentage is getting higher. It's more vain, it's vain based.
It's just about looks and sex.
It's about the desires, I guess we could call the natural man, the fun. I just want to go to carnivals and lagoon and have sex.
That sounds like my marriage.
I don't.
What?
I'm not saying that's what people say, but it's. I see this. I
believe you.
It's very surface. So me and you and Dane and a lot of people that we know and that they want to have depth.
Right.
And so when you're really looking for the real deal, somebody that's emotionally genuine and sincere and that wants to take responsibility, that is hard to find. I promise you, listeners, there's a lot of women out there. There's still a lot of men out there that are like that. So don't lower your standards.
Right.
But yeah, that blows my believe mind. That's the truth.
Wow. Okay. So we decided the best way to get over that is to realize they just probably don't want what you like. It's just not a match. Like I wanted depth and they didn't. And like, you have to just kind of make peace with like a full misalignment.
If they found someone else, it's most likely they weren't looking for the same things as they didn't value the same things you value. Think about it. That's why the relationship didn't work out in the first place.
Right. Your values.
This person is not valuing the same things that I value, and what I'm valuing, I feel like are really important. This deeper connection. It's essential to have. If you want a healthy relationship, it's essential to have someone that's willing to take responsibility.
Okay, so that's what we're adding on. Okay.
Okay, so we took a little break. We're talking about relationships still.
Yeah. I need something better than water.
So let's
JK,
talk
not
about.
JK.
Let's talk for a second about if someone's single and they're looking for a really awesome and healthy relationship. Like, what are some tricks? What are not tricks, but what's a way they can find out if someone, like, as soon as possible? How can they tell if someone is a person that's genuinely going to take responsibility for their stuff and going to hold their heart? And like, how can they tell if someone is that way before they are deep into it?
Right.
Because there's ways that you can know before you're too deep.
I think it's bringing, like, as a woman, as a people pleaser, and men are the same way, when something happens, or maybe there's something said that's offensive, or something just doesn't go quite your way, instead of just going, I'm going to pick my battles. Oh, no. Start some shit. Like, actually say right at the beginning, hey, when you mentioned that thing about, politics or whatever, like right then and there, go right to the jugular and say how that made you feel, and see how they receive your emotion.
That is the most direct way. No, it's good. That's great. So that's the core answer for sure. I love that thought. I want to share something about that. So like, people, I think almost all of us have been through this experience where people can say whatever they're going to say, but no one can fake a genuine emotional response. That is lie detector proof. Like, they can't. If you share something emotional with them, or like you said, you bring up how you feel, you pay really close attention. Like, you're hyper focused on like, how do they respond? If you want to simplify it, it's like, what's my responsibility? This was another thing that we were talking about or had a question about. What is my responsibility in my relationships? My responsibility is to be open and to be honest / direct, and to be kind in my delivery.
Right.
And if I am doing that based on how somebody responds to that, that tells me everything I need to know.
Doesn't it? You sit back and just watch, because you know yourself.
Yes.
You know how you showed up, and now you just watch the crazy unfold. Or hopefully not.
People that are, I'm thinking of a man, but people that are like players or these charismatic, smooth talkers, whatever, this is their kryptonite. This is something they can't fake. They cannot fake a genuine emotional response, period. They can say the words, but if you're open and honest, direct and kind, you can sense it.
So that's going back to having enough self-worth and self-value that when it does A, offend you, B, hurt you, C, just make you feel icky, that you actually love yourself enough to go, this actually won't work for me. Because so many times, at least as you were thinking about this man, I'm thinking of these women that go, and make excuses or this or that. And then they stay and they keep self-betraying when these things are coming up because they do not love themselves enough to go, actually, no. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
That took
100%.
I am just barely learning that, which is so sad. Because you have the fear of scarcity. Well, he might be the only one, or, I haven't dated all this fear starts running through your mind, and you make all these stupid excuses for poor behavior when really it's offensive to your spirit, period. Your spirit is literally trying to tell you a message, and now you're like, la, 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 to your spirit.
And what are you doing instead? You're listening to intellect. You're listening to thoughts that come from the brain. the brain tells you like, oh, you're not going to find someone else. Oh, this is like too much work to like, you can learn to be okay with this.
He's like a 10 and you're like a 6. Like, get it together, chick.
Yes, these are lies.
Right.
So
they're
these,
the
and
worst.
again, one of the main causes of suffering from thoughts is, remember, thought, and we haven't talked about this, but thoughts are trying to get you to not listen to your emotions and your spirit. That's their main role.
We got to like stay right here.
Yeah.
Say that again.
The main purpose of thoughts is to try to get you to not listen to your emotions and spirit.
So how do you manage that? How can you tell the difference between a thought and the intuition? We talked about this a little bit last time.
How can you tell the difference between a thought that comes from your physical brain versus a thought that comes from your spirit, your
Right.
in Buddhism, the pure mind versus the physical mind? The truth is we can't be perfect, and it's a work in progress. But to get more specific, this is why we need this spiritual practice. This is why we need this stillness practice, because if I'm believing lies that are coming from thoughts, it's going to manifest itself emotionally. Okay. For example, if I'm believing lies about my relationship, I'm going to be feeling anxiety or fear. That's the emotional lie. That's the emotional response saying false view of a situation. Ding, 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 ding. This lie detector's going off, and the anxiety is coming from that deeper place, trying to tell you that the way you're viewing your relationship doesn't fully check out. Okay. So, and then another small example is shame. Shame is very similar to anxiety, but shame is when we feel like we're not enough, or I'm a 6 and you're a 10. I'm never going to find someone better. That's a form of shame. I'm not going to find someone better. That's a form of shame. The shame is very similar. That's literally your spirit trying to tell you that the way you're viewing yourself is false in some way. So anxiety, from a mental standpoint, anxiety is false view of situation. Shame is a false view of self. So we have these emotions to help us. This is why we're so high on emotions, is because the emotions always tell the truth. We need to make sure we're listening to them. We cannot wait to talk more about that in detail as the podcast go on.
So thoughts are lying to us. Emotions are telling us the truth.
Yeah.
Are feelings and emotions the same thing?
Yeah. Yep, same thing.
So you can totally trust your feeling.
Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is most people are misinterpreting what their emotions actually mean. You know, they're feeling anxiety in a relationship, as an example, and they think it means that they're in danger or that something's wrong, where that anxiety might actually just be telling you like the way you're viewing something is not checking out, you know?
Right.
So
Interesting. Okay.
So the power of feeling confident in that I'm interpreting my emotions correctly, there's a real power there. So that's just one part of it. The other way that we can know is like from a spiritual, like you're going back to your question, like how can we tell if a thought is coming from our spirit or pure mind versus the physical mind? We were talking about a bit, that's more of a spiritual thing. There's a clarity to it. We just kind of know it's pure, it's clear, you know? So thoughts that come from, ideas that come from the mind often are foggy, confusing, lack of clarity,
Based in fear.
Yeah, exactly. Thoughts that come from pure mind or spirit are very clear, and there's a light to it. You know, you can yeah. So just to go back to why, if we want to have healthy relationships, this practice of stillness and the spiritual practice that we laid out earlier, so critical. I don't know if I've ever seen someone that is consistently in an unhealthy relationship. I don't know if I've ever seen someone in therapy that's consistently in an unhealthy relationship and they're not doing this spiritual practice. Or maybe I said that wrong. Someone that's doing a spiritual practice where they're checking in with their emotions and trying to be still and trying to listen. Those type of people, if they're consistent with that, they are not typically in unhealthy relationships, period.
Okay.
I don't see it.
So I 100% think you have to have this practice yourself, just as a human, right? But I've also seen things online where it's like practices couples can do together. Do you have any suggestions, or do you know couples that do a specific practice together that you see as just a game changer? You're like, dude, they do this and it's this beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think there's two things. Look, let me say this first. This is a statement that people don't like to hear, but is very true. Promise that most happiness in a marriage comes back to supporting your partner in them being individually fulfilled.
Amen.
This is more Eastern. The Eastern or origin of this is very powerful. In some ways, that's unhealthy, but the origin of the Eastern view is we're going to support each other in being individually happy.
Right.
But in the West, we like to believe that I can't be happy, I can't be fulfilled unless I'm with my partner and they are fulfilling my needs, or they are, you know. So we got it all wrong in the West. Now, with that said, it's still valuable. We want to still have connection in our relationships. So there's two things that I'm a big fan of. The first is, I think this is critical in a relationship. You need to have like a weekly check-in. And you get with your partner. And when me and my wife have done this, awesome. When we don't, World War III. So this practice is sacred.
For sure.
It's getting together. And so the practice is, it's very simple. Once a week, you plan out the same day and you make it a priority, and you initiate a little bit of a check-in, and you just each ask each other this one question. What can I do to be a better partner? What do you want me to work on this week? That's it. And this is where your partner can give you feedback, and you take it no matter what. You can't just like discount it. You know, if it doesn't make sense, you can ask for clarity. But then they also are doing the same. Then you're like, then they ask you the question, well, how can I be a better partner? And it's this beautiful, we're working. What's the evidence that we actually do like each other or love each other? We are taking feedback and we're working for each other. That's huge. I think that
would be the ideal.
That's the foundation, yeah. And that's not a far reach for a lot of people, unless you're deep in conflict and there's some things to figure out. But the other thing is Jordan Peterson actually talks about this a lot. I'm a big fan of this. He talks about how from the research, couples need to spend 90 minutes of quality time. This is non-distracted, just talking. 90 minutes a week total. 90 minutes, ideally outside of maybe like a once a week date or something, but 90 minutes total. So you break it down, that's like, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes a day.
Wow.
That's not much.
No.
So
I need a lot more than 15 minutes. Just saying.
Kimberly, for future daters.
Everyone out there listening.
She's 900 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But people, again, we get it wrong in the West. We think so much about quantity. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. Like, make this 15 minutes really, no phones. You're really looking at each other in the eyes. You're really talking. You're asking each other questions. So that's good. So anyways, the relationship check-in, and then the quality time. And then if you want to get really, really next level, then even having maybe some study time together, maybe some of these spiritual references or these books of your learning together. That's a nice thing, you know?
I keep seeing this visual and how I grew up. You know, I grew up with the little triangle, you know, where you've got you, your spouse, and God, right? And it was like this.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow in my mind, I made it and morphed it like this, right? And this suffocated so much. I really saw it like this, like how close can we possibly be? Let's like get so close and support each other. And through, beginnings and endings, I have completely, I was as Western as you can get it, as traditional. And now the visual is so much more like this, like I'm doing my thing. I'm checking in with my higher power. Well, this is the dream, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
doing this. He's doing this. And we come together and then we go like this. And so it's like this, doot, come together, doot. And so it's funny now that you're saying this 90 minutes, because man, I had it so, it was not this individual. I have my own purpose. He's supporting me in mine. He has it is completely shifted for me. And I saw some of that, but I'm really looking forward to hopefully creating that one day, because that makes so much more sense to me as an older woman than as this young girl getting married at 21, ready to just take on the world.
Well, ascending together.
Right.
Yeah, it's not meant to be a solo thing. You can only get so far with transcendence, enlightenment. This is my belief. And maybe this might not be fully true, but to some degree, you can only get so far with progression spiritually alone. You need, there's a lot of value in a partner. I'll just say that. There's a lot of value in a partner. And so I like the way that you are talking about it. And yeah, it's great. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was just a shift for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was embarrassing to look back at years and years of very codependent, very just funky marital practices that I just didn't understand. And now you just get a little bit wiser the little older you get.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about this too, but what can't be overstated is the impact that our parents have, particularly the opposite sex parent. So for you, your dad, me, my mom, the impact that relationship when we were younger, when we're growing up as a teenager, the impact that relationship has on who we're drawn to as an adult. And it's all unconscious. And this is what in Jungian, I'm a big fan of Carl Jung. In Jungian psychology, this is what he calls a complex. It can't be overstated. And so we'll dive. We're going to dive deep into that at some point too.
Yeah, that's like 10 podcasts.
That's really that's the transformational stuff though. If you're ready to hear it and feel and apply it, it's life changing. It's changed my life. Maybe the last thought on this topic is that just to validate, I guess I just wanted to validate how hard it is for people. Because in the West, okay, maybe you didn't have an ideal relationship with the opposite sex parent when you were growing up. An ideal is like the emotional support throughout teenage years in a nutshell. But not only that, you watch movies. Like our culture supports this like a crazy amount that just watching romance movies of like the boy is depressed and then he meets this beautiful woman and he's all of a sudden like happy and fulfilled. And like, guess what? The movie doesn't show you what happens 6 months after that. That's a real thing. Like somebody can complete us, but it's temporary. This is the honeymoon phase that's kind of referred to. And then it's over. And as happy as you were before is as happy as you'll be in a relationship. It starts with you. It's really beautiful to think about this. And this is my last thought as we transition, is that in the English language, we only have one word for love. In these other beautiful languages like Italian and Greek, they have many words, many different types of love. The deepest form of love in Greek is called agape. And what that actually means is they refer to that as like a sacrificial love. So it kind of goes back to what we're talking about. Like I'm working for my partner, but specifically what is beautiful about this is that love symbolizes or embodies the deepest form of love. Agape sacrifice is my partner is helping me. I am helping this other person become a better human being. and they are helping me become a better human being. And that appreciation and that gratitude there's no deeper form of love. Okay. So that's the love we have as friends. You know, we both have helped each other, you know, especially on the retreat in the last couple of weeks. We both have helped each other a lot, just become better. And, you know, that's the goal of love we want in our, you know, in our relationships, friends. That's it. That's like God's love.
Right.
That's the pure love.
It's so different. And when you can tap into it and when you feel it and when you share it, that's why I can't even relate to people that don't need depth and don't need, like, I don't even know what world that is.
Yeah, we can be friends with those types of people,
right?
But we can't.
But
date
when
them.
you've had a taste of that,
oh yeah,
pure, beautiful love, and you can get that as someone who's single, right? Like I could sit here and be real sad and be like, oh, I'm never gonna have that. No way. I can totally check in with myself. I can totally get still and meet myself right where I'm at. And as I develop that self-love and heal and work through some really, really hard things and work on building that self-worth and that self-value that kept me in really, really unhealthy relationships.
Yep.
You can have that alone. Yes.
Alone,
Do
yep,
I agree?
yep.
There is, I'm obviously, I love getting married. Like deep down, do I know that the relationship is that, but for those of you that are not in that space right now, you can still do this work and develop this and check in and develop that deep, beautiful, amazing love with you and yourself, which I think it's got to start there.
100. That is truth. What you're saying. I can feel it when you say it. It's like you need to find some of that first. And so this is in the Christian canon. This is the power of Christ. In the Christian canon, his ability to literally, if you are willing to feel pain, to heal you from that. If you're willing to try to, you know, more of the Western or Christian can follow God or follow Christ and try to live your life in a little bit of a higher plane, then you will experience this growth. You'll feel really grateful. You know, that's that. So it has, you know, ideally it has to start with some form of personal spirituality, which is why we're talking about that spiritual practice of stillness and seeking something and all that stuff. And then also if you're single, like with your friends,
right?
I mean, like having this, doing meaningful things with your friends and making sure you're expressing appreciation to them. We don't do that enough, and they know how we feel about them. That can't be overstated. That to go from nothing, to go from no deeper love in your life and to just find that fully in a relationship. Ugh.
Right. I'm trying to think if this is really a true statement. I'm not just saying this because I've got a microphone up to my mouth, but going way back to the very beginning of this conversation about being in relationships when someone is hurting you and then having to take your own responsibility for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still sitting here. I'm allowing this to happen. I must not love myself enough. Right. And having the fear of not wanting to do the hard thing and maybe get a divorce because you have a fear, the thoughts that come and go, you'll never get remarried or you'll da-da-da-da-da. And you think, I'll never have this love again. But then you have enough guts to leave this situation that is obviously your spirit is telling you is creating this abort. Mm-hmm. You just got to be strong enough to actually do it and trust that there will somehow be love on the other side.
Right.
So now I'm 10 months fast forward. Sorry, I'm just getting real personal right here. I'm just kind of seeing
Kids,
this.
deaf ears, la, 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 la.
It's like now that I'm 10 years or 10 months out, I can honestly say, I can honestly say I have felt more love, more true love, more beautiful love from friends, from my own spiritual practice, from my own higher self, from my own, whatever you want to call it. I
Mhm.
have probably, that love has increased more now than I ever had it in a marriage that I was begging for it, fighting for it, trying to create it, trying to convince myself for it, trying to whatever. And I really, truly had the belief that, no, you can't, I won't have love alone, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And to be able to cultivate and grow this self-love is like the most beautiful, empowering love that I didn't even know existed.
How does that give you hope that when you find another partner?
It gives me hope because I'll be a whole new different person. I already am a completely different person than I was 6 months ago, than I was 2 months ago, than I was, like, I'm continually, yeah, and you go forward and you go backwards, but like I now have developed because you've gone through such horrific loss, horrific pain. And I kind of believe that your capacity to love, I hate when people say this, oh, you'll have so much more capacity because you've been through this, but there's kind of some truth to it.
Yeah.
I hate that there's truth to that.
I was about to tell you that.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But what I will have, and I'm only 10 months into this journey, I have years and years to go. But what I am cultivating myself, so I'll be okay. When you come and maybe offend or hurt, I might be a little less sensitive, a little less reactive because I will have developed that self-worth that I could become a little bit more removed saying, this isn't about me. I think he might have had a hard day.
Exactly.
Like you just, I don't know. It's like, I just saw like a transformer. Like you just become more solid in who you are. And I look back and I think, oh, that poor, I'm going to send her so much love. Like she was just a gaping hole. She didn't have that self-love. And so when I didn't receive it, it would hurt so much more. And I was extra offended. And I was always offended and always sad and always left empty. And now I hate that I'm even hearing myself say this, but there is so much freaking truth to developing that real self-love. Not I take baths, I go get facials. No, like sitting with yourself in that pain, asking what you need, and then giving it to yourself. And your spirit now goes, oh, you hear me, you see me. You're not betraying me anymore. That relationship you build with yourself it's unfolding and I'm loving it.
1,000%. And what you're saying is highlighting one of the most powerful scriptures in the Bible, which says, perfect love casteth out all fear. You develop this love by being single or by being alone from God, from your spiritual practice, from the way you're living your life. Then it's like, that casts out fear that I'm going to be in another bad relationship. That's what I think you're a good example of that is going to give people hope, is like you develop the self-love. There's no way I can go into an unhealthy relationship again and just accept to be treated the way that I was before. There's no way.
Possible.
There's too much love. There's too much light. I'm going to see it way more for what it is. So this is how it makes sense that perfect love, this deeper love that we're talking about, casts out fear in our life. When we have it, we don't need to be afraid. We're not going to let people mistreat us and hurt us consistently.
It's just not possible anymore.
It's just not. It's literally, you would have to, like, I like the way you said this, you would literally have to self-betray yourself for weeks, months.
Oh, yeah.
And revert hardcore, which is very rare. And I think just, it's not human to do that. It doesn't make sense.
Oh, well, I did it for
I'm
many
doing
years.
it right now.
Yeah. I was a professional self-betrayer. But that being said, you don't have to just be single too. You, like my whole little thing with the people in a relationship.
Yes.
You're working on this on your own. You are working on your own self-love. Like I'm just saying because I'm single, right? But you can do this. I know your practice, right? You do get up in the morning. You do read and study. And that is literally packaging a better Corey for your beautiful wife.
Yeah, and if I'm not doing this and my wife isn't doing this seeking light, this equation we talked about, then then it's going to negatively affect the relationship. It validates this other saying that I love, that what we lack inside, we seek outside. If I am lacking balance, if I am lacking love inside in my own practice, I'm seeking that in unhealthy ways outside. And again, this goes back to the Buddhist teachings in Zen Buddhism of find peace with your pure mind in this place of stillness. And that is a place of rest for you. And so you don't have to seek addictions of find relief from whatever drug or pornography or whatever it is, because you have it within. You can go there. It's like having a drug inside of, that's not the right way to put it. But
I'm my own best friend.
I'm my own best friend.
Be your own best friend. Like, I'm like, what are you going to do this Friday night? I'm going to hang out with me. I'm hilarious. I'm amazing. Like, I truly love spending time alone. Whereas before, oh gosh, no, just seeking, wanting, sucking the life out of my.
I got to text these people on Friday night. What are they doing? What are they doing?
It's like, a total shift.
The FOMO. Yeah, that's.
You guys, if like seriously, for anyone who's listening, if you know my backstory, if I can even remotely do this, like anyone can do this. And I'm just barely learning. I am not speaking from any expertise. I'm just saying that I am starting to see the shift, and it truly is what people say. Because I used to call bull on all of it. Mm-hmm. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So thanks for letting me go on that little rant.
Yeah, right. That wasn't a rant. Any thoughts come to mind on what we're chatting about? I think we tied those shoes pretty good.
Yeah, I think we.
Let's
Dane,
maybe.
Dane, any thoughts?
It's all good. You covered it.
Let's maybe wrap up with like one or two maybe like final questions on our list.
Okay.
Okay,
so what are some of the best things someone can do right now to keep their relationships great?
I think that goes back to what we were talking about as far as like that relationship check-in.
Okay.
The relationship check-in, remember the question was, basically, what do you want me to work on this week? What's the most important thing that I can do to be a better partner? Relationship check-in, the 90 minutes at least of like quality time. So like 15 minutes a day minimum. And then the study time together, something that's like some kind of a scripture or book that you guys can read together that you can just be learning together is.
Right. Seeking light.
Yeah.
You have to be seeking light. Somehow there's so much. Yeah.
The third one isn't as critical, I'd say, but it's a huge bonus. I'll say that. When me and my wife have done that, it's been like really great.
Okay. So
we're doing that now, and it's been cool.
Are you?
It's been cool. Yeah, it's been cool. We did it last night. It was great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then last question, how do you know if someone is the real deal and actually genuinely improving spiritually and emotionally? Like, not, because trust me, like the real deal.
Okay, so we're packaging this all in the same package, which is like, these are just different terms to describe the same thing, which is like somebody that can take feedback, somebody that owns their stuff, somebody that can hold my heart, somebody that is genuine in the self-improvement path. Like, these are all the same things. The one word to describe that, if it's an attribute, is humility. Okay, so how can you tell if someone is humble or has that?
Yeah, you nailed it with that word.
Okay, there's some tactful things you can do. Kimberly pointed out earlier, you can, if you have an emotion come up, it's really important to bring it up, or to test the waters and see how this, we talked about how they respond is huge. There's some questions. I think what I want to say about this is like, what I've noticed is most people think they're getting to know people really well when they're dating someone. And actually what the evidence shows is they're not getting to know them really well at all.
They're pretending to be intimate. It's like fake intimacy.
You like carnivals? Me too. I think we click so well.
You need to go to a carnival. You keep bringing it up.
Why do we talk? Why? I'm going to go to one after this.
You need to.
On a Wednesday night. So yeah, like, so a couple little tricks, or not tricks, but ways to get to know someone really well. The general recommendation is ask people personal questions on a first date right away. So example of some personal questions. A one that I think is really good is tell me a little bit about your past relationships, and then they'll talk a little bit. Why didn't that work out?
What would your ex say to me?
Yes.
Is your biggest issue?
That's a great question.
Right? What
That's
would
a
your
great
ex tell me if she had to call me up right now and be like, watch out for this? What would she say?
But actually, that would be interesting. Actually, I don't even, maybe even withhold that question, because you want to say, like, what's your theory on why it didn't work out?
Because you want to see what they're taking accountability for.
Exactly.
Got it.
If their narrative is like, oh my gosh, she's such a bee, and like,
she's crazy.
She's crazy, and she did this and this and this and this, and it's like blah, 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 blah. And then they just end it. It's like, even if all that is somewhat true, it's like, no relationship is 100% someone's fault. The reason why it didn't work out. Well, that there might be, someone might just blatantly cheat on you and then they just don't stop being, and that technically is 100% their fault. But how do you have a relationship end, a marriage end, or example, and you don't once ask yourself the question, what role did I play in this? What? This happened to another friend of mine.
What?
It's a long, sad story, but he never once, I've never heard him once ask the question, what role did I play in this marriage not working out?
To himself. He's never self-reflected that.
And guess what? His life has gone down this crazy, sad, dark path for a while. So it's sad.
That is really sad.
Anyways.
Okay. I
don't want to name him because I don't want to call him out, but
but Bob, if you're listening, get it together.
But Chris, no, just kidding. Any final thoughts, questions? I'm trying to think if I have any final questions for you. I think those are some great depth and some great practical application.
Yeah, I learned
We'll post some cool diagrams on the about relationships on this podcast, so you can, if you want to go check them out, it can be just a recap of some of what we talked about, if you're interested. So,
I love it. Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks, Dane.
Mm-hmm. If you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.